Hey everybody, it's the Mad Master here. Just doing a video today. I know it's been a little while since I've done a plethora of videos for this channel, but I just wanted to come out and announce that even with Noam Chomsky and his very, dare I use this buzz term, problematic proclamations about a certain mandate recently, there's some good news, and this is related to left-wing heroes, left-wing popular figures that are questioning the narratives that are being pushed right now. And let me just say that I'm not against people doing that as their own choice. I do think there's some evidence of, jabba dabba do, I'm going to use code words, stopping severe outcomes with the spiked ball thing that's going on. And so I don't want to dissuade people from doing that or, making their own choices of their own health with regards to that. I'm not, and that's not what this is about. But just like the argument goes, I never needed to prove that I had this jabba dabba do to get into a bar or even most jobs as far as anything else, any other disease. So, and just the outright hatred and divisive nature of these people pushing these narratives means to me there is a nefarious intent thrusted upon some of these ideas that are being pushed. Just my opinion. So I am leading up to this announcement with as far as how this is being perceived by many on the left. Now you have your traditional blue check markers, and these people are just if we only did this, it would all be over, and it hasn't ended with all this stuff being done. I think at the end of the day, it's going to look like 1918, where a certain amount of people get it, and they're naturally, which I'm not going to say, because YouTube. So I don't like doing videos like this. A year from now, I hope there's no more videos about the subject. But I want to do, I have a YouTube channel. I want to do videos, so I'm going to be doing this stuff. So the drum roll comes in, and I'm proud to announce that Marxist economist and very visibly famous person, Richard Wolff, has come out against some of the narratives and some, the ideas of the mandates. Now, this first was exposed on Twitter, where there's people that are like, the Rational National, like, I'm so sad that he's not for the mandates. And Richard Wolff could have worded it better as far as how he came out against some of this stuff, or how he at least empathizes or sympathizes with people that are fighting against this in a Marxist, class. I've talked about class with the virus before, how it's very I see a lot of class related stuff. I would not consider myself a Marxist. Now, that said, if Marxist was just a social critic, he'd be, a lot of times he was spot on. There's just no denying it. And people could say, oh, you're a Marxist? No, I don't believe in the solutions that Marx had to the problems, but I do believe his analysis, at least for the time, and criticisms were spot on, and some of his theories were correct. So that said, I probably wouldn't agree with Richard Wolff's prescriptions to the chaos that we live in modern capitalism either. But that said, it's a good moment to see someone else who is so prominent questioning these things. And this really kind of represents a turning point, because, Noam Chomsky has sold out, well before this crisis, because, a couple of years ago, just the past couple of years, he's been saying a lot of stupid stuff. He kind of maybe called Medicare for All candy, and, started just like even sort of being like a little, little more sympathetic to the military industrial complex or deep state kind of stuff, which is surprising coming from him, and just other stuff like that. And I don't know if he's senile. He's like 93 years old. I don't know what the deal is with him, but Richard Wolff is quite a bit younger. So I don't want to discriminate against people's age or anything like that. I just think he's got to kind of jump the TDS train, so to speak, as far I'm talking about Chomsky, of course. So Richard Wolff had this this tweet, and then he was highly ratioed by a lot of his fans, which it's a very brave and courageous stand to make on the left, to be against a lot of these things or questioning a lot of the narratives that are going on right now. So the guy has some major gonads, I'll just say. Another thing about that is that he was actually made an appearance on Jimmy Dore too, where I think Dore probably had a good conversation. I didn't catch this because Dore actually puts these things behind a paywall after they premiere. Does a stream, so I'll probably have some excerpts pretty soon, I'm sure, on his channel. But the whole notion of the left questioning the narratives and questioning these mandates and these guidelines, to me, makes me way more optimistic about the future as far as things go with all this stuff. And it doesn't mean that necessarily, I'm just going to say this, mandates and stuff, like if there was a sunset clause, or there was like, we'll do this until this happens, and they've actually stuck by that stuff, the goalpost, which was moved, and they actually followed through on that stuff, I would not be as opposed to all that stuff. But the fact that it's just this nebulous, like arbitrarily enforced thing that, or arbitrarily enforced. No, it's not arbitrarily enforced in some places. I'm just saying arbitrarily discussed thing like this nebulous kind of future time when we won't have these mandates or won't have this. That worries me. And that was starting to worry people on the left. A lot of the people that on the left starting to question these things, because they're starting to see these things like in the frame of like what happened after 9/11 and on other things, which I saw from the beginning, might add. March 28th, you can look at a video from my channel where I talked about the new normal and how that reminded me of propaganda from 9/11. So it doesn't mean it didn't happen, or didn't happen as what they said. It just means it reminded me of that propaganda, period. So it's good to see this. I'm very happy to see more people on the left question the narratives and question the mandates and stuff, because I felt alone for a long time. I felt like just the entire left had gone insane, with all this stuff. And it was just like, don't you have any critical thinking left? We got to do all this stuff. It's all important. Even a lot of the stuff that contradicted itself, like, at the Black Lives Matter protests, after where people were supposed to be isolating and quarantining for a month, but no, go out and protest with big groups of people. People that didn't get a second take on that should probably question their critical thinking skills. But yeah, I was pretty mad and pretty devastated, honestly. I was devastated because I felt like I was alone in my values and my concerns and beliefs about this whole thing, because I always considered myself left-wing. But when there's more people on the left that are starting to question things and starting to be like, hey, wait a minute, what is this? What are we doing here? What is this all about? What's the end game here? And Richard Wolff comes out. Richard Wolff is on, Jacobin. I think he's been on Young Turks and all these places. He's all over the place. I'm probably not a huge fan of the guy, but he's a big name. It's like, I remember when Scientology was starting to be questioned, Let's just do a comparison. We have Leah Remini and all these people that left the group. But let's say let's say Tom Cruise is Noam Chomsky and John Travolta is Richard Wolff. Let's say John Travolta left Scientology and started to speak out against it. This is like that kind of big news, you know what I mean? And I do see this virus thing as kind of a cult in some of their beliefs. Just do this one thing, or else you're a piece of shit. Or it's just like a cult saying, you'll go to hell if you don't do this, It just kind of reminds me of that. It's a very cult-like mentality these people have. So, and it doesn't mean that I don't support doing that or, anything like that. I'm not completely against it. I think a lot of the risks of the Jabba Dabba Doo have been a little bit grossly overstated. That said, I still think there are risks. Still think there are bad effects from that too. Don't get me wrong, especially if you're going to do it year after year, month after month. I'm like, well, do it a couple of times if it's really, a big risk, or you're at risk, of at risk group or whatever. But doing it over and over again just for years on end, I mean, I just don't see that. And of course, I'd probably be called a denier and all this stuff from saying that. I'm already on that pretty edgy side of this. So, used to be a little edgier about it, I'll admit, even in my videos. But now I'm a little bit more moderate about it. But at the same time, I'm completely happy to see people calling shit out and questioning things, which they should. And that's what bothered me about the left last year, is like they just went along with everything, just followed along like sheep. It was dumb. But now Richard Wolff, he's all over the place. Look up his name up. He was interviewed by this person. That's a big deal. I mean, it's not a small name. I'd say right now, his name, the last 5 years or so, that name has been probably synonymous with someone like Chomsky. Chomsky hasn't had as much of a public profile in the recent years anyways. I mean, he still says stuff and he's still respected, but someone like Richard Wolff, I believe he's a professor as well of economics, and I may disagree with a lot of this stuff, of course. Someone coming out and saying, wow, this is a class thing with this, and this is good that people are questioning this, and we need to question this, or whatever, he's saying, which I wish I knew all the details of this, but for him to actually come out and empathize with the people that are questioning the interventions, the forced interventions of what's going on. Him to do that is great news about the battle that we're partaking in, which hopefully, if it just goes away and they lift all these mandates and stuff, I'm just like, well, in retrospect, I'll be like, well, at least it was temporary. Maybe we had to do this or that, But if it's permanent and that's what people are scared of, then it's all justified what people are saying and stuff. But there is a class element to it. Like I said before, I feel like there's a class element to all this stuff. The cushy, white, upper middle class or upper class liberal can order from, order out food and work at a remote job and, not have to face all these consequences, whereas the person busting their ass has to be out there, and them looking down upon people that want to live their lives because they have to, relatively pre-2020 normally, and then looking down upon them as less than human, or less than human for not trusting big corporations or pharmaceutical companies. That's just there's a total class element to that. So just like I said before, I think I did one in March of this year about that, or April, a video about that. But yeah, I mean, it's good to see people coming out and saying, fuck this shit. We need to question it. We need to look into this and see if this direction is what we want to go in, and try to fight some of it. I mean, if it was temporary, wouldn't they say it was temporary? I mean, I think there's like Alberta not prime minister. I don't know if they call them governors or whatever up there, that said, oh, we only have to do this temporarily. And it was the first time I heard that, and I would probably respect people saying it was temporary, but they're not saying that. They're just saying all this stuff. They're just kind of doubling down upon a lot of these ideas and saying, it's like the Australian Prime Minister, well, you're going to have your boosters, you're not going to be considered, you know what, I'm not going to say what it is. All these people just doubling down on authoritarian nonsense. It doesn't even, obviously it didn't work, it didn't work. I mean, would there be a lot more people dead if they didn't do it? The countries and states that have numbers that are similar to states that did all this stuff, that speaks for itself. They did all this stuff. Florida versus California. California is still number one in all the deaths, but they don't call Newsom New Death, or like Death Santis or whatever. It's so stupid. And I probably disagree with DeSantis about like great many things politically, but the whole thing with him not backing down from his whole thing. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you're not gonna. I mean, we're not gonna. I think America looks pretty good. I think the future looks pretty bright because people are questioning things and pushing back like they should, and we're finally fed up. There's going to be a lot of chaos. There's going to be a lot of people, and it's protests like the left media is like, oh, these protests aren't about mandates. They're never about mandates. Just don't see the guy behind the curtain. Of course, half the time, or at least 1/4 of them are about mandates. The 5,000 people protesting in New York, that was about mandates. All these other things, the Southwestern Airlines thing, that was about mandates. It's not just about mandates. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on with all this. I'd say at least 1/4 of it is about mandates. So that's a huge percentage. And as things go forward, it's going to be about that. To fire someone because they don't want to take your experimental thing that hasn't been tested really long term and then not give them unemployment, that's criminal. Okay, that's criminal. If they gave them unemployment and stuff, and that would be a different story, but that's criminal to me. I mean, that's complete forced it's against the Nuremberg Code of forced medical interventions and stuff. It doesn't matter. I mean, if it was on the level of Black Death or Ebola or something, yeah, maybe, but it's just like, it's not, it's laughably minuscule compared to those things in the first place. Doesn't mean people aren't affected by it, but I know this guy that I work with. He said he had it like 2 or 3 times. He's pretty obese. Okay, I'll just say that. But yet he said he got it from the grocery store. He believes that or something. It's like, I've been out, and I've had friends that have been out for the past 2 years. They got sick for a couple of days, and they don't even know if it was the thing. And then they've been healthy otherwise, and everybody around them. It's like this weird dual reality that people are living in, and they never figured that out. I wish they would figure out why the hell do huge swaths of people never have anything, and then there's other people that are severely affected by it. Why can't they figure that out? No, we got to be forced into all this shit, right? You got to be forced into this experiment. So, fuck that. And yeah, Richard Wolff gets my total respect for coming out and saying this stuff, and he is a big voice on the left. He's going to get canceled by a bunch of people, but people are going to be forced to listen to the other side. People are going to have the conversation. We're going to have to talk about this shit, and that's good. And that's about all.